G'day, doggies fans, all things Bulldogs. It's episode 6 for 2025. Welcome to Adam from Adam and Aussie Prison Stories. He's here again, ready to get cracking, and thanks for that, mate. Hit the like and subscribe button if you like. We're at 994 subscribers. We're nearly at the 1,000, which is just a bit of a milestone. It gives the ego a boost, but all good. We'll get there. It's not a big deal for me, but nice little milestone all the same. Welcome to the few people who've jumped on to say hello. I've come in late. It's 9:30 in Sydney and up in Queensland here. It's only 8:30. I only finished work recently and just had dinner. So, well, the sides have been named for the Broncos match. 2 full-strength sides to go at it. I'll give you updates on the latest injuries if you haven't heard, although I'm sure most of you have. Being fans like myself, you're all across it. Thank you, champion. Much appreciated. Look, I'm going to go through those sides, show you those. We'll do a review on the West Tigers match. Pretty much tell you where I think things are at, and I'm pretty sure it'll come out pretty close to that as we see. But first of all, Jacob Carraz, as advised by Phil Gould, likely to not be playing until round 2 at the earliest. That's what they're aiming for at the moment. It's a pain management thing. And Satili Tupanua has been in rehab for about a month, and he will likely miss round 1 and be ready for round 2 as well. And Anari Tuwala got a foot injury, and he'll be out for about 8 to 10 weeks. Mitch Woods, he did a hammy, which happens a lot for these young kids. Training with the top 30 can easily happen, and he'll be out until the end of March. So no problem. It's not a problem for us. Pretty much, as we'll see, is the side that's been named to play the Broncos is pretty much our team from last year. All bar, we don't have the Fox, and obviously we don't have Jacob Carraz because out with the injury. But outside of that, you've got Blake Wilson will come in on that left wing. On the right wing. He will sit outside of Stephen Crichton. And Marcello Montoya will play on that left wing on the outside of Bronson Cherry. I think it's a good idea. I think it really makes both sides of the field rather similar in pace. I do think Bronson Cherry and Montoya will be the side that's targeted and will have its difficulties that they'll need to sort through, and hopefully it's already sorted through. But we will see against the Broncos, who I'm sure will test them and have announced a very strong side. And yet, Aussie Prison Talk, really good live podcast to hear about what happens inside those prisons from one of my mates who's lived it. And it's very insightful. And there's lots of content that you can go listen to from the last couple of years. So it's really good. Jean-Pierre Tarabay, g'day, mate. Thanks for coming on and constantly and consistently keeping us guys informed. That is my absolute pleasure. And I love to hear from everyone and have a chat. Hayes Perham. So he's done an ACL at the Broncos. So there you go. Unfortunate for Hayes. Very unfortunate. No problems, champion. So look, this side that's been named, it doesn't feature Daniel Saluka Fafita, doesn't feature Tom Amone, doesn't feature Jack Todd or Jack Underhill. But what you've got these guys that are here most will play about 50 minutes. And then they will bring on some of the youngsters. Expect to see Rini Kama and Jonathan Sewer both as the next men up, right? They're the next men up based on the amount of injuries we've had with the wingers, obviously with Carraz and and Chihuahua. That means you've got Wilson and Montoya. If one of those goes down, it will be down to Jonathan Sewer and Rini Kama, who both played against the Tigers and did a really good job. Couple of errors, but really good into the contact. Lots of meters, lots of post-contact meters, lots of work out of yardage, and lots of finishing ability as well. Line breaks, you name it. Those kids have got it, jumping up for the ball. Obviously, a lot of work to do on some of their defensive work, especially under fatigue. But those young fellas gave you a good insight as the type of players we'll be bringing through the system that'll be coming into the Bulldogs over the next few years. Yes, long day for me, my brother, but that's, I love talking about it. And I've already had good practice talking to you fellas, gas bagging, talking, which probably slowed me down a little bit, but it's my own fault. Still waiting for Mark to jump on. Oh, here he is. Speak of the bloody devil. G'day, Bulldogs fans and others. Welcome. Look, we've got our next man up on the wings. Joey O'Neill is your next man up in the 7 position. Cassius Tia, he's at this point on the train and trial, which means he's not eligible until round round 10 or 11. But if he's brought into the supplementary, he could be eligible to play earlier. And if we were to have a lot of injuries, they could get permission to bring a player in, which they've done a couple of times in the past. Welcome, Michael. Hope you're going well, young fella. Oh, you had to update your phone. No problem, brother. Yeah, we played well. That's what I love about the Preseason Trials, is that we get to see the next generation of Doggies players. 100%, mate. And welcome to you, Just Bulldogs. It's great having the footy back, mate. And get on there and listen to the Just Bulldogs podcast with Jade and Brayley. Welcome, Jason. Thanks for jumping on. And mate, really appreciate that. And we all can't wait for it. That's why we're here. No. Tears in front of O'Neill. Mate, you need to understand how things work. He can't be in front of O'Neill if he's not eligible until round 10. Supplementary players are in the supplementary for a reason. That's how it works. Okay, the development list, we utilised 2 players from the development, 3 actually last year before round 10. 4. So we had Powasa, Curtis Moran, both playing first grade off the supplementary list, and Bailey Haywood, right? So Cassius Tia can't play unless he gets put onto that development list, which he's not on. So that's just the reality of it. Man, I've been going crazy with no footy. Me too, man. Just quietly. How good is it that Mick has provided a platform for our own Bulldogs community? Oh, much appreciated again, my friend. Trials are not just nothing games. You need to check that rule, mate. Need to check what rule? If you're in train and trial, if you're in the New South Wales Cup squad and you're not on the development list, you can't play before round 10 unless you get an exemption. So if we have a couple of players go down and we don't have enough players to fill that position, they can apply to get a player from New South Wales Cup to play. That's the rule. They changed the rule for development players so that development players are eligible for round 1. They did that last year. That was the first year that happened. Joey O'Neill is on that development list. Cassius Tia is not. Okay? And I'll show you the bloody rules on Saturday when we catch up. When you pick me up from West End. I'm glad they fixed the play the ball rule. Your thoughts on that, brother? I was actually one of the ones that really didn't give a shit about it because it sped the game up. I felt, in a good way. There was way less knock-ons from play the balls. The only ones that were happening were when they wear that sticky stuff on their hands and the ball would get stuck to their hand as they went to roll it through their legs. Now we've just got, it's fine if they're playing the ball, but the problem is there's going to be 30, 40 guys, or there'll be 50 times in a game where a player won't actually put their heel on the ball, and it'll be subjective as to whether he tried to or not. And then the ref will call one of them as a penalty and it'll change a game. That's why I don't like it. That's why I didn't care that players were sort of just rolling it between their legs. I know it's not the rules, and, I agree that if the rules are there, you should apply the rules. But it didn't worry me because I felt it didn't. It was a year that the Bulldogs did pretty well, so it suited us a little bit. But I don't know. We'll see if it changes things. It shouldn't. You just got to attempt to play the ball. And they're also cracking down on people planting the ball, and then if they're sort of falling over the top of it, even if they touch it with their foot, they're penalising the fella playing the ball. They did that about 4 times in the Indigenous game. What are you smoking, Mark? Cheap stuff. Yeah, when they get tired, they can't be bothered bending down to play the ball. Mark. Again, you're not following how things have been done in the Bulldogs since Serrato's gone there. This bench here, without Satili Tupanua in the team, that's your bench. That's your bench. They're not going for big men on the bench. Curran's on your bench. Haywood, Salmon, and Moran. That's your bench. That's the bench that's the style of football we're playing. And there hasn't been enough rule changes to really stop that being an issue. But we may see a problem with it. If Carrigan and Huss and all them get rolling and our boys can't stop it, we may have to look at the way we do things. But they weren't getting on top of us in the forwards until the last 2 games of the season, when our minds are on other things. But in looking at that, that's our bench. That's how it'll start. I honestly see this as our team for round 1. Now, Gus has said on, I'll actually show you. He said on Twitter that Tom Amone and Daniel Saluka Fafita will play New South Wales Cup this weekend. To get longer minutes, we want all our forwards getting a good hit out this final trial weekend. Now, look, some may say that Daniel Saluka Fafita should be in the side. And we have this craving for big men, which we've all gone through this ourselves. We've all seen this. But I will tell you this. This is how it works, right? And if I'm wrong about this, I'm happy to be wrong. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if I'm wrong. I can say things and get it wrong. It doesn't fucking matter. There's no consequence for me to get things wrong. I'm do this for free. This is just my opinion. But my opinion is based on the way things go down and the way, just predictability on the likelihood of things happening. And it's very likely that the style of football we played last year will be similar this year, with a bit of enhancement, a bit of a change. They definitely want to have greater depth in big men that can play longer minutes. Now, for that reason, what Phil Gould is saying is that the next 2 props after King and Hughes, he's not having Fafita and Amone competing for the Dragons game in round 1 ahead of Hughes and King. Those 2 players are there to take a spot from King or Hughes should King or Hughes get injured or just be that deplorable this week or something not be right that they need to not play. And I can tell you that's not the case. Sam Hughes, they didn't need to see him play huge minutes against West Tigers reserve grade side, right? Fafita needs to get the runs under the belt. He needs to play. He needs to get cranking with it, right? And he did a really good job against a reserve grade opposition. and 40 tackles, none missed. Did his job really, really well. Bailey Hayward, we had him playing hooker, which stifled him a bit with his passing game. He made a couple of errors, but that was all right. He was getting off the line. He was getting down low, cutting people down, taking the time away. We struggled in that early part of the second half. They brought on a player like Jack Underhill, and that changed the tide back in our favour. Joey O'Neill controlled things well, and then Cassius Tia come on and showed what that fella can do when, we set out to achieve what we want to achieve with our sets of 6, turning the team around. He did that in the Jersey Flegg Grand Final as well. If you go watch that, his first half was phenomenal. Second half was all right, and he got did some very important stuff through the semis for us to win as well, to get there. Very good player, Cassius Tia. And I believe he'll play 200 NRL games. I believe he'll be a 5'8" hooker, lock. Throw him in there in the 7 if need be. But Joey O'Neill's next in line should something happen to Sexton. And I think even Hutchison might even be a chance to come through. And Drew Hutchison played very well in his stint on the weekend as well. So, Saluka Fafita and Tomamone. Tomamone coming through the Super League, getting his fitness up, getting his reps up. He'll have an important part to play in the coming weeks. There will be injuries. There'll be an injury, or there could be form issues. Whatever it is, there will be a need for Saluka Fafita or Tomamone to come in and start. Playing these guys off the bench won't really isn't the way our team is rolling, unless we have a couple of injuries and we need someone to sort of come in and play that role that Josh Curran plays at the moment. Josh Curran is currently a 45 to 50 minute player who comes off the bench and goes hard and works hard for a long period of time, usually in one stint, sometimes in a couple of stints. Whereas what we need from Hughes this year is for him to get the sort of minutes that Curran and King were getting, which they both average 45 minutes a game within 10 seconds of each other over the season. King's more suited to that as a starter than Curran is, but Curran did a really good job stepping up for a few weeks before it really busted him in doing that. But, so that's the way it works. You got Sam Hughes, who they'll be looking to get, look, I know we look at Penrith and that sort of stuff, and let's look at the Broncos. You got Huss and Carrigan. They play really long minutes. They're sort of outliers, but you look at a James Fisher-Harris and a Moses Leota. Both are like 20 to 25 minute players for that first half, and then come on again and play 15 to 20 to 25 minutes in the second half as well, with that third tier player to play between 20 to 30 minutes. And that's what we want to get out of our players. We want those props like King to have the other prop to be able to do the same thing. We don't want to throw Daniel Saluka Fafita in there right now in the NRL when he's still coming back from that injury. It's his first preseason since he did that injury. He had a few games last year. They want him to be able to get that defensive resilience, get that match fitness up, get those miles in his legs so that he can come in and be Max King or be Sam Hughes as far as playing long minutes, hold up the middle, defend resolutely, hit and stick, drive play at teams back, get post-contact meters and quick play the balls away, and cover that middle up when tested. So, and not for 10 minutes like we would get from Powasa, or where they'd bring Franklin Pele on and get 10 minutes out of him. We need to get long minutes out of these guys, right? That's the idea. So there you go. That's how I see it. We'll go through this review of the West Tigers game in a sec. It was 20-14, obviously, willing contest, but so this team you see scrolling along, Wilson will be on the right wing with Stephen Crichton. Just remember to those games against Parramatta with some of the tries that Blake Wilson scored, linking up on that edge. A very, very powerful edge with Jacob Preston on that side. And then on the other side, you've got that speed of Bronson Cherry. Obviously, a lot of work's going to be done by Marcelo Montoya. His job's pretty simple. Run hard off the back fence to make meters. They're not going to have Carraz for this game in the trial or for that game against round one in the Dragons. It's looking very much like he won't be there. So Montoya's job is quite simple. And him and Cherry need this game against the Broncos to be tested and to have the processes tested to make sure that they can defend and get things done. The good thing about having Burton and Kickow, who are very familiar with each other, Cherry was there the whole season. You've got that combination of three players that played pretty much a whole season together on that edge. And for Kickow and Burton, they've been obviously in the same team doing it for a while. That cohesion is very, very important. And the fact that Kickow chases so hard and shortens up that side, Burton's becoming more aggressive, more physical as he gets older. And if his effort and attitude's there as a leader within the club, you expect that he's going to make the job of Bronson Cherry and Marcelo Montoya much easier. And clubs are going to, be very wary to come down that side of the field because they're going to get hammered. I'd expect to see a lot of kicks down that side of the field to try and turn players like Cherry and Montoya around because that's probably one of Marcelo's. Whereas the Fox is really good at turn around and getting back. And I could probably see Blake Wilson having a better advantage of doing that as well. Montoya, we've always known he's a little bit slower at turning and chasing. So that's something we've got to really watch at. And our fullback will need to keep an eye on as well. Drew 74. Do you think Zion will get game time in first grade this year? I think he might. And I think you'll see, look, I like what he tried to do on the weekend. He was energetic. He was a real leader out there when he was there. And he was showing some line speed and he was hitting hard. Did some good cover on the inside, as all the forwards did. They all had good moments in that area. But for me, the prototype of player, Zion for us needs to get fit to a point where he can be a Max King or a Sam Hughes and play 20, 25 minutes of power footy holding up the middle. If he's going to be an impact player for 10 or 15 minutes, for us to carry that, it wasn't something that Serrato was a fan of. He tried periods where he had Poasa there and he had Franklin Pele there for a bit and that sort of player, but he's gone with the fit people that can go out there and tackle all day and make enough and do enough with the ball and show enough skill on both sides of the field to be able to pass. And we saw that yesterday in that trial, like the amount of passing being demonstrated, and same with Kurt Morin in the Maori game, although that was probably because they had less skill in their halves, I guess, not having first choice halves running in that side, but he was helping a lot, doing a lot of passing at the line. Jack Todd, we saw doing a heap of that. Jack Todd to me looked like a Cameron Murray coming through, just a little bit bigger and harder to deal with through the middle. But that's a huge rap for Jack Todd. What a player. But yeah, I think you're going to have a situation where Zion's got to become that enforcer that can play long minutes. And so they've got to let him get those miles in his legs. And I just think he's just behind, obviously probably behind Fafita and Amone at this point. And I think the likes of Underhill and Jack Todd are probably more suited for what we need, because we saw when Jack Underhill come on in that second half, we had Fafita there. And whilst he didn't have any missed tackles, there was periods where he couldn't get in the line. And West started making some real meters in that second half. And then they got a couple of piggyback 6-agains, one off the fourth tackle and one off the fifth, and scored back-to-back tries in the space of a few minutes and got in front. And it was the introduction of Jack Underhill which changed a lot for us, changed the way that defensive momentum went, because his line speed was nearly the same as a player like Hayward or Marnie, and Kurt Mann had been playing throughout the season. It was quick line speed, and he was just throwing himself at defenders. But he's got that size about him as well, you know what I mean? Like, he's just the perfect prototype for what we need. And I think that's the prototype right there. There'll be a couple of players from this side, whether it be Fafita or Hughes, Amon, you know, I reckon if we might see one of them in the team in 3 years' 3 years' time. The other two of those will be gone, probably. Knowing that we've got Leo Thompson coming into the mix. And it's not just these guys we're talking about. Like, AJ Jones looks like he could be anything. Lipboy Hotboy was rather good through the middle. He never played on the edge. Salmon played on the right edge. He played in the middle. Luke Smith, I was wrong about that. He played centre and toiled away and had a good crack at it. I was very happy with him. Mark, you kept saying that Toby Sexton played round one last year. Well, I told you weeks out that he wasn't. Like, I knew. And many people knew. And Fafita will only play round one if there's an injury to Hughes or a player in that's currently in this squad. That's your first grade squad right there. Happy to be wrong. No consequence if I'm wrong. You know, if you're right, you go very close to winning this little comp we're doing. If people still haven't got their entries in, get them in. Even though we've had a trial, I don't care. We're not playing for sheep stations. If you want to put a late entry in, go for it. And I would start with a team name to play the Broncos. I reckon that'll be very close to what rolls out round one. But, you know, we could get an injury to Burton. We could get an injury could happen in the next couple of weeks and in this game that's being played. So I honestly believe that's your side. Wilson on the right, Montoya on the left. King, Marnie and Hughes are your front rowers. Kick out Preston Mann. It's a great forward pack. And then you got Hayward, Curran, Moran and Salmon. Mobile, powerful, hardworking, energetic. And the players picked in that second half, I think Harry Hayes will replace Viliami Kikau, and I think Luke Smith will replace Jacob Preston on the right edge. I think the edges will get replaced. And then they'll just roll with those forwards that they've got to give them as like a real game scenario. Curran will play 45, 50 minutes. I think Shorty Moran will play about 25 minutes. Salmon will play long minutes if required. And then they'll bring on Blake Taff for Tracy, give him a break. And bring those two halves on. And I reckon they'll give Critter a break at some point as well, unless he wants to stay out there. John says, mate, don't even get us started about these fucking refs, eh? Yeah, this team looks like we're going mobile, resilient, hard-working team riding last year's momentum. That's a very nice way to say what I took about 10 minutes to say, buddy. Thank you. Do you think we'll ever go back to two refs? Hope we stay at one, but maybe two is better. I don't know, man. Like, I think I'm in the same as you. Maybe one's better. Is two better? Don't know. I just deal with the cards they deal us. You know what I mean? And then if they act like fuckwits with shit that they say, the commentators or the media, I'll let them, I'll come here and talk about it and tell them where to fucking go. Jaden, if Saluka Fafita has a couple more games like he did on the weekend, he'll force his way into the team. 40 tackles, 0 miss, really put his best foot forward. Yeah, Jaden, I talked to that a lot already. It was a reserve grade game. He did a fantastic job. Statistically, it was great. But there was a couple of times where he wasn't there as well. Look, I did a big preview on him. I'm rooting for him. I was so glad when he come to the club and was just hoping that he would be able to get himself resurrected and be a player that comes into our side and can see him being an enforcer and worth close to $1 million by the end of his career. Like, that's the type of player we're talking about here. That's the type of player that the scouts thought that they were signing at the Roosters from the Souths juniors. That's who Souths were desperate to get back into their system. And that's a player we pay good money to come and help rehabilitate him, to take some pressure off Souths. It took some pressure off Souths salary cap, that's for sure. And I have no doubt they'll try to win him back now that they don't have any of the Burgess brothers in the front row anymore. Tom finally finished up. You got a couple others which are playing like bustards constantly. Good players. Cameron Murray's been busted for a couple of years, and that other fellow who plays Origin, I always forget his fucking name, but he barely plays a game for him because of he plays with a lot of heart. And then they've got the other guy in the front who was sort of the heir apparent, but he's had a lot of injuries as well. And then they let go of Saleh, who was a Penrith junior, who went to the Dragons and then had that heart murmur against the Bulldogs. So they've lost a lot of power from their pack, the Rabbits. So I've no doubt they'll be looking for a player like Daniel Saluka Fafita, and our priority will be some of the younger guys. So we've just bought Leo Thompson. I hope we keep Daniel for next year, I really do. But I think he's playing for his future. And, yeah, and I have no doubt he will be a player that will be will be playing first grade this year, and barring injury, may like once he gets in, if the team performs and he performs along with it, he'll be very hard to remove. But for round one, I think you can't look at that grand final, that semi-final, which was our grand final as it turned out, and say that we were dominated in the forwards. And so the pack that we had, I felt was on top of a pack which had Pasika and all these other players in it, Matthew Lodge and whoever else, Josh Aloiai, all these seasoned, hard-nosed professionals, will beaten between the ears. And when it counted, we were gassed because we didn't have we had to defend too much because of silly mistakes and errors and discipline. But we weren't beaten in the forwards. So I think Serrato is going to trust these blokes that he's got there to do the job. Now, if Satili Tupanul was fit, I think that Bailey Hayward and Salmon, potentially Saluka Fafita, and potentially Morin are all fighting for a spot. Because I think Sam Hughes is cemented in that squad. I really do. And we'll see. We'll see how he goes. But he played limited minutes because he's got less. I think he's got less to prove to the coach at this point. It's not a trial for spots in NRL. I know we think that. We saw Max King come from nowhere in 2022. We saw, or 23, I can't fucking remember now. We saw Jacob Preston last year, or the year before, I should say, come from nowhere. Now, whilst he pulled the wool over 99.9% of fans' eyes. Scott Woodward went out and headhunted him. They knew what his beep tests were. They knew everything about him. They knew they knew how many support runs he ran in reserve grade. They knew how long he could go for, what his top speed was, how many tackles he could make in a day. They knew all this stuff, and they knew he hadn't stopped growing yet as well. Before a ball was kicked in the trials, they knew this kid was in their squad, and he was in that 17. They knew it. And then he went out against a reserve grade side in the Raiders and absolutely smashed them. Following week, we got beaten by Cronulla. Last year against the Storm, it's the same thing. He'd cemented himself after one trial match, just like Jacob Carraz had cemented himself against the Broncos from his debut, even though he cramped up late. These players, like Carraz did prove himself in reserve grade as well. But these trials, I've said it for a couple of years, Sexton wasn't fighting for his spot in the trials. They picked Drew Hutchison a lot earlier than that. They knew Toby had to work on his defence. And if you go to round one against the Parramatta Eels and New South Wales Cup, you'll see the defensive lapses on that edge with Toby and with Parham and there's just a lot of them struggled, to be honest. You can't just blame one, but the misreads were there to be seen, and getting your body in behind on the big fellas wasn't happening. But by the time Toby come in, not only was he just absolutely oozing class in attack, he was smashing people in defence. That wouldn't have happened in round one last year. You've got to understand that this coach is pretty smart and this club knows what it's doing. And these players aren't, they all want to be in the first grade squad and be in that 17. Doesn't matter if you're on the bench or starting. That's all determines where you're best suited to the team at which point of the game. But these players want to know that it's a long season. They've all got a role to play. And if they keep toiling away, keep working hard, they're going to get a job with the Bulldogs. And if it's not a job with the Bulldogs long term, they've got a great audition happening for whichever club they want to go to. And listening to the Penrith CEO today, this is what we will see with the Bulldogs. Every player that's 19 of the 27 players that have left, first graders that have left the Panthers over the last 5 years, have all gone on to make the most money they've ever made on their next contract with another club. Every player they've brought to their club has signed for less, or basically on minimum amounts. And that's where the Bulldogs are going to be. That's where we're headed. When players leave our club, they're going to make more money than we can offer them. And when a player comes to our club, they'll come for unders to fulfill a role within our side. It's how it works. And when you've got a manager like Phil Gould and you've got a coach like Cameron Serrato and a good team behind them all with so much Bulldogs influence and so much memory of the winning culture, but also the knowledge of where we were and where we will never go again and how to make sure that happens. And I'll tell you how it happens. The club doesn't give a fuck if 99% of fans think that we need Payne Huss in our side. They don't care about that. They care about winning, our club being a top 4 team, top 8 side nearly every single season, to being a grand finalist, to being the best club in Australia and in the world is what Phil Gould said the other day. That's the focus. And they're not going to get there by listening to the fans. A lot of private members who have sat there and sent messages and to the chair people and to the coaches saying they're going to kick him out and get an emergency meeting and do this, that, and the other. And trying to stabilise the club because we've lost games. There was people wanting to do that when we were making finals regularly under Des. There was rival tickets emerging. You know, people need to remember we were making finals then and people weren't happy. 2014, I remember the amount of negative talk about our coach and about our team. And I think we finished in 7th spot and then end up making the grand final. But the point I'm trying to make with that is that if you would have listened to half the fans, be careful what you wish for. Because come 2020, when we can only win 3 games in a season and we're praying just to win 1 match, I know what I'd rather. And the board was under a heap of pressure then. Anyway. G'day, Gratitude. Did the wife buy you those rose-coloured glasses? G'day, mate. Sorry if I missed you. Round 1 team for sure. Big boys for Fida Ramon and Zion will get plenty of game time in Cup to be ready to play long minutes in the NRL when they're needed. No use having them on the bench and getting 10 minutes a match. You're 100%, Pete. That's exactly what the idea is. You have your 3 best forwards that can play the longest minutes in your side. That's the Serrato way. Okay? And for Fida and Amon, we'll need to get the miles in their legs so that when there is an injury or if someone's called up to do something else and they have to reshuffle the team, that one of those players will come in. Or if we're losing some matches, having some bad form, they're going to bring in one of those guys to just play the process that the coach is working through. And there'll be a process which will go for so many rounds. It'll be game by game, but they'll have a long-term approach to the season, how they want it to roll, with numerous plans on how to get there. And, they know what their side is. Pete summed it up perfectly. Jack Todd as a weapon is another one of our future stars. 100%, mate. You're seeing him right there underneath me. Them beautiful blue eyes. Or are they hazel? They're hazel. Wonder where Tupanua is playing. So Tupanua has an injury, so I reckon he'll be playing in the middle. I don't believe he will be playing on the edge. I believe he'll be playing in the middle and cover as an edge or cover as a centre if the need arises. But I think he will play in the middle. Harry Hayes will be cut. He will, but he'll be there. Harry will be there to play on an edge should the need arise whilst other players are out. And fill in the middle if need be. Wilson should be on the left side outside of power of Burton, Vickau and Kickow and Cherry. Wilson has served us really well on the right-hand side of the field. Why wouldn't you keep him there? Why would you put Wilson on the right and on the left and then Marcelo Montoya? I understand the club definitely wants to put players on each side of the field and certain players that are very skillful can play left or right. Cherry can play left or right. Critter can play left or right. Tracy can play left or right. Wilson can play left or right. Montoya can play left. The Fox could play left, right? That's just the reality of it. You're not going to put Marcelo Montoya on the right-hand side of the field when he's a left-hand player. It's just, I've said it 100 times already today. You're basically torturing yourself. You're setting yourself up to be pissed off at the coach. Plus, I know you're just trying to get me fired up, and I've taken the bait. But the fact of the matter is, you asking for something that's not going to happen. It's like me for every Christmas every year wanting the NRL to start on Christmas Day. It's just never going to happen. Never going to happen. But I can whinge about it, complain about it, but it's never going to happen. Wilson will play left wing if Montoya's not there potentially. And that's what they need to do. Just like they moved Carraz to the left a couple of times through necessity and to improve their play. And maybe he will, throughout the year, get Montoya playing on the right edge if he thinks that's going to be beneficial to the player and beneficial to our team. But yeah, that's I've spent way too much on talking about that today. Rennie Karma, this is what we want to talk about. Was fantastic on the weekend. Truly a future winger for us. I probably said this before, but he graduated from my high school in 2023. He's doing engineering now. Yes, I remember, and we talked about he looked very likely in Harold Matts. Did a very good job in SG ball, and now he's come through, and he'll be playing flag, I'm sure, at some point, and he'll play New South Wales Cup as well. While those experienced players are injured. And he may even well get a debut in the NRL, similar to Jonathan Sewer. He's got that leanness like Jason Saab. Very, very tall, lanky, great aerial ability, really fast. Yeah. And good into the contact as well. That was the first thing I noticed as a Harold Matts player, was just his ball carries out of yardage. Obviously, just too advanced for those youngsters at that point. But we've got some other good kids coming through, like Wavik and Afualo and that sort of thing. You know, they're really good players. Danny Gabriel, who did a good job as well on the weekend. 24 watching, only 6 likes. Come on, everyone, hit that like button. Thanks, brother. Everyone can do better than that. That's right. He's not fit yet. He cost the first try. Yeah, well, look, there was some errors from the back three, which they'll learn from. Obviously nervous as well. And there was some defensive deficiencies with the wingers, both wingers. So, but that's normal. And the reason those deficiencies were exposed was because we were getting rolled through the middle. And until Jack Underhill come on in that second half, our middle wasn't holding up. Okay? So it doesn't matter who made 40 tackles and missed none. There was misreads. There was not getting back into the line. There wasn't the line speed. Ruben Moyle tried really hard, but they kept running at him, got gassed pretty quick, which was normal. His first tackle was great off the line. Really remembered that. But when they brought the other Otukakwalo, I need to look at the team lists. The young fella had come on. Taniela Otukolo. He set up a try, which was really, really good. Cooper Toy did a good job on that right edge as well, tried really hard. But Otukolo just had that more size about him, and he helped hold up the middle a little bit better. And the Tigers were running out of gas. But look, in that game, we had 45% possession and a completion rate of 67%. To win a match with that, you've done pretty well in the end. To nearly make the same meters from 20 less runs, to make more line breaks, to miss less tackles, you know, we did quite well. There was a lot less line speed, but when Jack Underhill come on, that line speed really improved. He got off his line really well, cut down the time. We had Hayward, obviously, in that first half. In that first half, we had Joey O'Neill, who played a whole game, compared to Cassius come on for 25, 30 minutes. Big difference, right? Much bigger difference. To compare, you're comparing apples with oranges. You got one kid who just, in that first half, he had Blake Taft there as a playmaker. You got Drew Hutchison, who had a lion's share of the ball as well. You know, Joey had to sort of bide his time a bit. Bailey Hayward on the field as well. Second half, he directed really well. Some good inside balls, some good running options, some good kicking options. He nearly got a couple of 40-20s himself. You know, and the stuff that our team did enabled a player like Cassius Tia to show how classy and effective he can be and how he's going to be a great player for us, no doubt. But Joey O'Neill, in my opinion, whilst Cooper Cronk, I don't always agree with everything he says, and he's very much a Fox Sports commentator now. To make comparisons with Dearden, it's not where I would make the comparison, but his his deception to run the ball. Cooper Cronk enjoyed watching that and gave him the raps as he deserved, and Joey O'Neill deserved every rap that he got on that day, in my opinion. So let's get back to it. I put a hit on the like button, so go get it, everyone. Smash it. Thanks, Adam. Yeah, gratitude. He is very special. Michael said, according to Gus, he was supposed to debut for us last year, but he broke his forearms. He did, and then when he got fit, he broke another thing as well. So, yeah, very special kid, Michael. Underhill will play NRL this year. Well, I think he's the prototype of what we need to come into that team. Someone with the line speed who can work and also take a carry and take a hit and throw a ball as well. You know, the fact that both Jack Todd's a lot silkier at this point, but I see both of them in our side within 12 months. But who do they replace? You know, who do they replace? Does that put pressure on the likes of Sam Hughes and Max King? You know, Max has literally busted himself for the Bulldogs and been rewarded with the extensions, and been a man of steel, a player that had to overcome 2 really bad knee injuries and was going to retire a very young guy. Has reinvented himself as a Bulldog and carried injuries nearly the whole time. He's busted himself for us he's elevated himself into a starting front rower in any club. Now, Sam Hughes, so much upside in him still. And I think once he brings that offload into his game, but we'll see. Sam might be playing New South Wales Cup next year when Leo Thompson comes in. Just out of class. But doesn't mean he's finished. Josh Curran, the amount of damage he's done to his body to implement the Serrato system, it's demanding. It demands, a high output from every player there of hard work. And not all their bodies are going to hold up to it for season on season. Only a certain amount of players will hold up. I think some will be broken and will leave our club broken on better salaries. I honestly believe that. They demand a lot. And they have to, because we punched above our weight last year, and I think we're going to have to punch above it again this year. I don't take anything for granted. Every win we got, we earned. And there was games where I felt we weren't the better side for long periods, and we won. And there was a bunch of games where I felt we were the better side for long periods that we lost. That just, to me, shows a team that's out there working hard for each other. But if they drop 1% each on that work ethic or anything like that, we lose a lot of those matches. We all want who's the hero and this and that and the other. It just takes a team all working hard, and you'll maximize your results. G'day, Steve. Love our juniors. Looks like we have a few injuries like Carraz, Woods, Hammy. The night swing we brought out for 10 weeks, fractured foot. Hope Curran and Hughes are good. Yeah, I think Hughes was fine. Curran, he looked a bit battered from that Indigenous game. He battered himself last year too. They wouldn't have won the year before without Curran. The amount of desperation in defence. I felt he wasn't quite as good this time. A lot of people disagree. I felt he was a bit more conservative, but still put up a magnificent effort and should have been rewarded with a try. Tia also looks great. He did look great. But context is everything. It's different between coming on playing the last 25 minutes. It's like when everyone was talking about the brilliant Joash Papali, who had a great game for Parramatta, right? Against the Storm last year. We played a reserve grade Storm outfit, and we brought those young fellas on, and Joey O'Neill and Joash Papali absolutely tore the Storm a new one on the playing down the left off Bailey Haywood. Now, it's context. It's one thing to do it there, to do it in the NRL. But the thing is, Steve, sorry. I think Cassius Tia will do it in the NRL because he just seems to have this swag about him. And I like it. To me, he looks like a rock star. He's someone who's, I don't think he looks really laid back as well. It's like, this ain't that tough, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to do. And he was able to showcase what he could do. Cool, calm, collected, very skillful. And the size that he's got just makes him so versatile. So I think he's going to be a big part of our plans moving forward and will require a fair bit of salary cap at some point. And that's the problem we're going to face. So you want to win a few premierships, hopefully, because the amount of, and that's an annoying thing, the amount of coverage and positive coverage we're getting, it's sort of, if that doesn't come with a premiership, you're forced to offload good players you want to keep because they're demanding lots of money. I don't know. Who knows? I'm getting ahead of ourselves. Sutton be good this year playing for a new contract. Yeah, well, I don't think Ryan Sutton wants to go home to England. I'm not sure if they want to. I think they want to stay in Australia, but I'm not sure. No one's really talking about him. Gould was asked about him on Twitter, and his response was, that that Sutton's injury recovery was a very, very slow process. So there you go. G'day, Timmy. Welcome to you, mate. I hope you had a good day at work. Let's stop these comments until Mick catches up. Otherwise, midnight. It's all good, Peter. And that's a good thing about these. You can stop listening and come back and listen a bit later if you want. But you will find that I will answer a lot of things twice, which is what you're talking about. Rennie Khan was okay, but he didn't follow the defensive system. Mark, I don't know what you mean by that. I do know that he, under sufferance, because we're backpedaling, because the middle was losing at that point, that he made some choices. And that's what happens with wingers. They start to make choices. And when you're under sufferance, you're going to make it. You're going to go left. You're going to go right. You're going to run out. He came in off his wing, which is what he was supposed to do, but he missed his target. And the West fellow showed his class and just stepped around him. Our wingers, part of up and in defence is coming in to shut down players. That's the defensive system is more the line speed of our little men and of our forward pack, and ensuring that the big men, they still have quite a bit of space in between each player, which always stresses me out because you've always got to rely on that cover. And we saw the big boys in that reserve grade trial cover that inside really well. All of them did, from Saluka Fafita for the majority of time he was out there. Even Tom Amone, Mayu, Jack Todd, they all did it. But the line speed stuff is the system where they work in tandem, two of the little blokes usually, where they get one player up in there quickly, then the next one's ready to go for the next play. And it's about the fullbacks and everyone communicating so that they know where all the plays are coming and getting that right most of the time through what the other team's setting up. And it's the wingers. By the time it gets to the wing, if the wingers are going to have to run in, now whether he should have run in or not is another question. I don't think it's Serrato's system. I think that's a young guy who made a decision and it went wrong and they scored a try because of it. I don't believe he's the next man up if Montoya or Blake Wilson go down, but I do believe if both of them go down, he'll be called into the squad. But I think that'll be after around 10. You know, he's not in the development list, I don't think. Unless he is, someone let me know. But I can't remember if he's in it or not. I don't think he is. Jonathan Sewer is. So Jonathan Sewer is the next man up. But both very young. Yeah, Riddy Karma can still play SG ball this year. That's how young he is. He's got another 2 years in Jersey Fleck. He did well. Isn't the saying 2 heads are better than one? However, in this case, I hope they stick to one ref. They have enough refs to make the cake, but they miss the most important ingredient. Common sense. Well said, buddy. G'day, Scary. Welcome again, my friend. Joe Millennium. If Burton gets selected for Origin, would you pick Tear at 5'8"? Looks like he has a huge boot on him and can kick goals. Well, that's the thing. If we're into that Origin period, Tia will be available. And honestly, I think he's more suited to come into that 5'8" role. If Toby goes down, I'm bringing O'Neill in every day of the week and giving him a run. And then I'm bringing Tia in as well. I'm not going to let Joey O'Neill come into first grade in only his second season of New South Wales Cup and play halfback for the full season. I'd be bringing him in for a few games, then bring Tia in, or even Hutchison for a game. You know, that's what I would do. If it's a case where a halves stay fit and Burton gets selected for Origin, I think by that time, I think Cassius Tia is the more suitable option to come in. And I think you'll prove that in Cup. I don't think the step up to Cup's going to be too hard for him. As I said, he's got that size, he's got that swagger. And I think the club know that they've got a player on their hands there. But don't underestimate Joey O'Neill as a half. But these halves have to be managed over years and years. You know, Woods is in the top 30, which would have been a condition of keeping him and keeping that talent in our club. But these other kids are going to have their say. And you got young Alex Conti, and there's some others as well. And in Harold Matts, you've got the young fella, Chinadu Uday, who's scored the first try for the Bulldogs in the opening 3 rounds. He's the captain. They're a young squad. They've won 1 and lost 2. Couple in close games. And look, they were expected to struggle a little bit this year, to not be like the pace setters this year. But they do believe they've got a lot of talent in that squad that's going to put pressure on a lot of our players in the future years. So they're going pretty well. Let's go Doggies in 2025, man. I think we can finish 5th. I hope we can, brother. Jason says we can get a top 4 finish. 100%. Mark believes I'll finish 3rd because he's gone through the ladder predictor and he's marked out all the games, and that's where he thinks the Dogs are going to finish. Me and Pete should get a room. Why? Because we listen and learn from what people do, mate. That's the whole point, Marcus. You you can think what you believe should be the side, and you can make these statements. This is how it's going to be, but you're just setting yourself up to be angry at some of these decisions that they make because they're not going to make them. They're not going to put Montoya on the right, and it looks like Sam Hughes is the one that's going to be playing. If Saluka Fafita was going to start round one, and let's if there's no injuries, Saluka Fafita would be up in Brisbane this week playing, and Hughes would be playing reserve grade. Right? They want to give them all a run, yes, but that's exactly what Pete says, to build that time. They don't want these big fellas wasted on the bench. They know that they tried that. It doesn't work. It stifles their development. They need to play minutes. Now, unless Sam Hughes is going to play Josh Curran's role off the bench, he'll be starting. Right? That's just the way it is. Unless it's a game where they think starting Josh Curran will be a benefit to us over the 80 minutes, in which they'll put one of those guys back to the bench. Either way, you expect Curran's going to play long minutes, whether he starts or doesn't start. Get him, Mick. You tell him, brother. I will, my friend. Fucking look how many comments there are. 30 people on. It's great to see everyone. Thanks for joining. This is a pretty good deal. We're going pretty late, which I know, and I gave no real notice. We won Flegg last year. He played SG ball last year too, 100%, mate. Tay Cochran looked good when he came on against the Tigers. He certainly did, Timmy. Another one I wanted to talk about. Many will say he outshone Blake Taft, but he's playing at the back end of a game on full energy versus a guy who started and had to do the hard work. I felt Taft didn't have his best game. I felt there was a couple. Look, he's got blonde hair. I don't think that's by design. Obviously, he fucked up something in the preseason, was late to training, did something wrong. That's one of the punishments. They go and dye their hair, and they all have to do it. But Tay, yeah, his attacking ability is good. His positional play was great, and really looked like a live wire. And he's a good kid, good young Indigenous kid. Hopefully he does well. His development will be how he marshals the defense, right? How he communicates with everyone out there and learns how to pick those numbers and ensure that our boys can implement that system. That is a very important system. Sue's a really good winger, 100%, mate. So the two matches he's played in sort of NRL company, being his debut last year and in this game in the trial, number one eater meter. And that was through taking lots of carries. Obviously the ball was kicked to him a lot more, which is part of it, but always there to take a hit up off the second play, and his speed into the contact and his post-contact, his agility and ability with the ball, that break that he made off that great work that we did. Salmon, that was really well worked, that first try that we got with Jack Todd. Just going back to that. The fact that Mayu'u come on and he was all fired up, ready to take a hit, and he's on the left of the ruck off the 20-metre tap. They went right to Salmon to start, which they did not expect. Salmon made about 15, 20 metres off the first run. Got to the advantage line before they knew it. Good play the ball away. And then from the play the ball, Mayu'u was coming in ready to take the next hit up on the left-hand side of the ruck off the short side on the right. But instead, Hutchison has sprinted to the line, got the football on the short side play. Mitch Moses type play when you go watch him, and throws that beautiful ball to Sua who breaks through. And then moments later, Jack Todd gets his first touch and we score. That sort of stuff was intelligent football from the hooker passing the ball from the start to, I don't know if that was a planned thing that they had going on, but it turned out to look very intelligent in my eyes. Timmy says Cassius was awesome. G'day, Mr. It's me. Last year's inaugural winner of the best of Serrato's 17. Sewer needs some confidence. I feel he's got lots of confidence, Mark. I feel that there was a couple of times where he didn't pin his ears back. But he pinned his ears back to make that break. And dropping the ball, they did their work on him. They squeezed those balls out, and he just needs to be able to wrap the ball up better. I felt he played really, really well. And he's only young, and he's only going to get better. Thanks, Adam. Much appreciated, brother. Of course, he's still young, and that will come. Rogeri Warwick looks solid. Yeah, well, he had to come on in the Jersey Flegg Grand Final after Jonathan Sewer got smashed in the head, and he played really well in the Grand Final. I think he scored a try as well. So he's definitely a good player. They brought him from the Cowboys as a fullback. So to know that you've got that versatility of a player like him, and he hasn't given up on his dream of playing NRL, so it's all good. It's all good. Gabrielle was better. Better than who, Mark? Danny Gabrielle played really well. Showed some class with a classy pass. But playing centre, had some good runs. Could have passed on one moment when it didn't. Threw a pass when he shouldn't have on another. But defensively really solid as well. But who's he better than? He's playing centre, which is what he's played coming through. Had to mark his brother in the Flegg Grand Final last year, his older brother, who we let go to the Sharks. We know how much talent Danny's got, and he knows how much talent he's got. But who's he better than, I don't know if he's better than anyone. I think it's a case of they're all going to do their jobs. They're all going to do their roles. They're all going to try and shine and help the Bulldogs win. And we will do our best. The club will do their best to retain who they can retain and keep who they can keep. Repeating myself with two different words. And hopefully the ones that leave on a bit more money and have a good chance at a good career, but hopefully aren't quite as good as the ones we keep. But we know they'll make some mistakes. All clubs do. Do you think it was good for Penrith to let Burton go? Of course it wasn't. But when the Dogs are offering him $550 and he hadn't progressed to that player to earn that money in their system, they couldn't match that. All right? We're going to let a player the quality of a Matt Burton go. If it means we've got to keep a player of a quality of or close to the quality of our version of a Nathan, a Nathan Cleary. If keeping Mitch Woods means we've got to let go because he's that good. If that means we've got to let go of a Toby Sexton or a Joey O'Neill or a Cassius Tia, that's what's going to have to happen. I think Burton will be worth too much for our salary cap, though, in a few years. I think his next contract, I'm not sure if we'll be keeping him at the Bulldogs. But getting way too ahead of ourselves. Mr. It's me. The pain has look Daniel Saluka Fafita you'd be referring to. And that's exactly the type of mould of player that he is. He's not quite as big, though. Nearly as tall and nearly as heavy, but he's not. But if we can get the same output from him, the Painhouse has developed an offload. And for me, that makes Painhouse a complete player if he can actually execute that So a bloke that size that can play 65 minutes and would play 80 if you let him is just not a normal human being. If Daniel Sulika Fafita can play 25 and then play another 20, by the time this season's over in the NRL, we've got a lot of headaches to keep him in our club, and hopefully they will try to keep him. And hopefully he'll repay the Dogs for, taking him on, helping him rehabilitate, and then getting him to be that player and give us another year or two. But to keep a player means we've got to let players go. Yeah, the bat on for the try was really, really classy. They're classy players. They're both Gabriel brothers. Very classy. And I think Danny seems to be a lot more, from what I can tell, a lot more humble. Michael's got that real, it comes across that ego and arrogance. Doesn't mean he's like that. I just get that on the field. I used to feel that with Darius Boyd. He's a real arrogant prick. Whether he was off the field, I don't know. Cochrane was pretty good, 100%. Mick, I was at the Dog game the other day for the first time. Got to see James Graham and Darren Smith become life members. Oh, that's brilliant, man. And thoroughly deserved, both players. I remember Darren Smith coming onto the scene in 1991 in a pre-season trial match at Wagga Wagga. Kevin Moore played that day. Kyle White, rest in peace, Kyle. I really love Kyle White. I fucking wish that he could have gone on and been a great Bulldog. Love the way he hit. He's one of the best hitmen out there, that young fella. Big tubby fella. But, Darren Smith was playing in the second row when he started. So, there you go. With no headgear. Jack Todd's footwork looked great for a big unit. Yeah, buddy. Jack Todd, to me, I'm getting Cameron Murray vibes with that footwork, but just a bigger body and he can pass a football as well. He can offload. He can do it all. Yeah, Underhill does remind us of Aidan Tolman. I do think, though, he's got a bit more speed and I think he's doing things a little bit faster than Aidan did and with a little bit more intensity. I just love the way his legs go flying out from beside him when he's just throwing himself at the defender, at the attacker, Just go watch the Jersey Flag Grand Final. You see that about 20 times. Him just running off the line and just diving at blokes. He falls off a few as well, like no doubt, but he's got the line speed thing down pat. I love him. What a fucking legend. I know this front row is ball playing in the trial. What do you think about that? Yeah, well, we saw Kurt Moran doing a lot of it in the Indigenous game, and we saw. I felt Jack Todd did it a bit early a couple of times, but obviously they're under that instruction, and we saw that a lot under Des Hasler. Front rowers passing the front rowers and linking up. I love it. I think if the more stuff you've got in your kit bag, the better. And we're going to have to use all of that. They're going to have that variation in what they do to continue to progress. Teams, the game's become so fucking vanilla in the way that it's played that, bogans like me can almost understand it. And, to be able to develop that variation in what they do is really, really important. So I like it. Watching Curran playing the All-Stars suggests he's in for another great year. He's just all heart. But I just worry about the way he puts his body on the line. I believe he's a classy player. I reckon he's, on the verge of origin, in my opinion. But I also believe Jacob Preston's on the verge of origin. And I look at Jack Todd and I'm like, I can see him playing origin. I could see Jacob Carraz playing origin. And that's a great place to be in because I remember sitting there in the Bulldogs in 2004 saying, why isn't Luke Patton the fullback for New South Wales? Why isn't Brent Sherwin considered? Obviously, Andrew Johns was around and Brett Kabuli. Why isn't, Andrew Ryan playing regular Origin? I know he played some. Why isn't Sonny Bill allowed to play Origin? We had Shrek playing Origin. He used to get belted as much as he made ground in Origin arena, but by the end of the 80th minute, when he come back on, he was still running as hard as he was the first time he got belted. And eventually he made he just kept up taking everything that the opposition had. That's what I loved about Shrek. Yeah, sorry, you got me just thinking about it. Once our boys get their confidence, look out, NRL. Yeah, well, I think we got a bit last year, Adam, and I think there's a lot of talk this year, which always worries me. We've got to see action. Cassius Terry reminds me of Ben Roberts. A little bit. I think he's got more size than Ben, and I think he's got less head demons than Ben. Ben, I felt, never reached his potential. Definitely had some moments, though. What a great step he had. And when he put it all together, he had a great pass, he had a good kick, but there was just too much inconsistency in his game, and he copped a lot of flack for when things didn't go right as well, which was another hard thing for him. And we just like to see those players that play with that certain effort, which is why we saw players like, we fell in love with players like Josh Reynolds and that sort of thing because of the way that they go about their business. Like it just means life and death to them. And that's why players with a little bit more laid back aren't always appreciated as much by the Bulldog fan base, like the Moses Mbis and the Ben Roberts and whatever else. So they tend to cop a bit more flack when things go wrong. And I think that was one of the things with Matty Burton as well, is it didn't look like he was going to go, we want to see players who look ready to, I've got to be careful what I say, but are so depressed and sad they don't want to get out of their bed for a week because they made a mistake or they fucking, they lost the game. They're that sad. And they don't want to shake the other team's hand. They don't want to do anything but win for the Bulldogs. That's who we love. But players are a bit laid back and it's like they don't care as much. They tend to cop a lot more flack from fans and don't get as many chances. Where it seems like it doesn't mean as much when it does. So there's a bit of a lesson in that for Bulldogs players, if you're ever watching. Not that they would be. Be upset when things don't go right. Hopefully dyeing his hair wasn't his choice. Nah, I don't think it was, buddy. Looks terribly funny, makes him have a bad hairline. Talks about Reed Marnie getting shopped around bullshit. I don't think Bailey is a full-time number 9 yet. Good question, Mr. It's Me. Yeah, it's bullshit, mate. I love the way Serrato framed it. People coming in and, it's always a positive that when your club's doing well, that opposition teams and clubs get interested in your players. That's putting it on the opposition teams. And that's got nothing to do with the club. I believe it to be bullshit. Bailey Haywood, to develop as a hooker, to start, to make those tackles and to be able to get around the park and attack and get those balls on the advantage line. He's good at bringing players onto the footy when he's fresh. But as we saw even in that trial, and it was the first trial, and I did not think Bailey Haywood went at 100% in that match. I think he had a bit up his sleeve, but he's feeling the pinch and he threw a couple of bad balls. And we saw that against Cronulla. He was fantastic last year in that trial. And then that fatigue in the end threw that ball and they got the intercept and scored the winner in a very close trial. with two pretty much full strength sides, which is what we're going to see against the Broncos this week. Michael, a lot of people on today. Good to see all the Doggies fans. When I mean annual general meeting, I mean annual general meeting at Canterbury Leagues Club. Talk about what happened throughout the year last year, including sales plans and voting with the board. Yeah, I'm interested to see what happened with that. I'm pretty sure they would have lost what they were planning on doing, which was to increase it from 100 people to 100 private members getting signatures to have an emergency general meeting. I think it's a smart idea because when you got thousands of private members, 100 is not many. And you could literally, I just don't think that's right. I think it brings instability. That would bring a little bit more stability. And I think they wanted to bring extra people onto the board as well, an extra person maybe, something like that, and extend the length of time the chairman can be on for, something like that. And I've always said that I think 2 years is way too little. It's no company, no business improves if people decide that they've got to constantly sack the person in charge when things aren't going right. Especially where we were coming from the bottom, we needed a board that was able to get in there, find out, what it could and couldn't do, and then have the time to actually do it and make the decisions they needed to make. And I think they've done a fantastic job. They've had some hiccups along the way, no doubt. Of course they have. But I believe the amount of, they've won a lot of battles. The kids are involved again. The juniors numbers are going up. The girls' games going great guns in the Bulldogs area. You've got so many more corporates on board, so many more sponsors wanting to get involved, so many more player managers calling the club, wanting to talk to Gus about coming to the Bulldogs. It's all there for everyone to see. And, there were some businesses around the area that were sponsors of the club that couldn't pay their bills, their own bills, let alone pay the club during COVID because they had to shut down. And we never forgotten what the Bulldogs did for them and what they did for the Bulldogs. So there's a lot of loyalty amongst the corporate side of things, and they're getting that right. And yeah, they've got so much right. But you always make mistakes. It's a 2 steps forward, 1 step back sort of thing. Everyone's 5 more subs until 1,000K. Oh, we must have got another one. Thank you. Thanks, Heath, brother. If you had to pick one player or position from last year's team under the most pressure from a newbie, who is it? I think Salmon, I wouldn't say one. I think that Salmon and Haywood and Moran are fighting for one position, potentially 2 positions in that team. And I'd also suggest that a player like Sam Hughes will be under a lot of pressure. If players like Curran and Mann and Preston and Kickow and that all do what they do well, and Max King, they're going to maintain. They're core players in our squad right now. The likes of Hughes, the likes of Salmon, Haywood, Harry Hazel was there for 9-10 games at the end of last year. And Moran, like most people haven't put Kurt Moran into their team to start round 1, but I believe he'll be there. I didn't believe he'd be there a few weeks ago, but in thinking about it and then watching him in the All-Stars match, and obviously he being picked for this Broncos trial, I think he's definitely in the mix. I think he's ahead of the likes of Jamin Salmon for what our rotation needs. I think they trust that he can get in there and make his tackles, play his minutes, do his role, and enhance our team when he comes on the paddock. So, yeah, it's hard to say. I think Montoya will be under a lot of pressure to keep his spot. If players did what they did last year, a lot of those players are going to be very hard to remove from the team. Carraz will walk back into that side. We could win the first game 50-0. If Carraz is fit, he walks back into that squad. That's just the reality of it. Blake Wilson could be man of the match. I think they'll drop him. I think they know who their best players are in each position, and they're either going to have to be injured or have poor performances in order to relinquish that position. I don't think there's enough. I don't think they look at two players and go, well, you players are identical and we're going to play you one week and play you the next sort of thing. I think there'll be a plan. They'll be like, for this part of the season, we've got these players. The plan will be, though, to bring these players through at some point, and we see them as the long-term future. I think Jack Todd will be definitely part of that thinking. I think he'll play a dozen matches of first grade this year, barring injury. I think Underhill, we might see him play 3 or 4 matches. And we'll see what happens with the likes of Harry Hayes and Litboy Hotboy, because I know they haven't given up on their dreams. And to me, they're first grade footballers. So can't keep them all. Can't pick them all. Actually, I revoke what I said about Cassius T. It reminds me of Jerome Luai with his swagger, as you said earlier. I've hit the like button. Thanks, Timmy. Max King should be selected for New South Wales. Well, mate, I think he's good enough. I think he's good enough to be in that picture. But when it comes down to it, if you got a player like Payne Haas, who can just do the physical parts of that game to the level that he does, I don't ever think that Payne Haas has dominated in Origin. Even last year, I don't think he dominated. I thought he had some good moments when he played. Did he play last year? I can't even fucking remember. But that's what I mean. You'd remember if he was that good. But I think Max King would not be out of place in a Blues jumper. But do I think that will happen? Probably not. Anyway, guys, we've talked a lot. I've talked a lot. I've answered a lot of questions. Let me put the teams up for the Broncos and Bulldogs again. We'll see the Broncos side. So let's look at it. Reece Walsh versus Connor Tracy. Selwyn Cobbo, Katoni Staggs. Shibasaki. Haven't seen him for a while. Jesse Arthurs is a very good player. Ben Hunt and Adam Reynolds in the halves. We've got Tracy, Wilson, Cherry, Crichton, Montoya, Burton and Sexton. Front row for the Broncos. Carrigan, Payne Haas and Corey Pakes has beaten Billy Walters to the hooking spot. Max King, Reed Marnie and Samuel Hughes. As I said, if Saluka Fafita was in front of Hughes, he'd be playing in this trial against the Broncos. I honestly believe that. It could be the complete other way, though. It could be that they've seen enough. They'll just keep him ticking over in New South Wales Cup trial this week and then have him prime for round 1 against the Dragons. But I don't believe that is the way it will work out. I really don't. But we will see. Jack Gozowski, I can't pronounce his name, who was a mid-season signing last year. He's been to a number of clubs, Cowboys, Eels. I think the Eels. And now he's at the Broncos. Kickout and Preston. Jordan Ricky, I felt, was back to his he was way more, he was never really aggressive. Then in 2023, become real aggressive. Had a really good season. And last year, he just seemed like he just wasn't there. He just wasn't the same player. He looked more like that player in the All-Stars match. had a lot more desperation about him, and had a bit of his swagger back and a bit of his ego. But I'll tell you something now. Jacob Preston showed he's up for the fucking challenge. You know what I mean? I saw that in that Manly semi-final. He wanted to take on that whole pack, and I reckon he'll be looking forward to playing Carrigan Carrigan and Huss and the like. And obviously Kobe Hetherington, the son of Jason, who can hit like a fucking steam train, and Kurt Mann, who absolutely destroyed. I remember he tackled Jesse Arthurs, and Arthurs looked like he wanted to vomit afterwards. And he also put massive hits on a couple of their big boys as well. I think Corey Payne. Now they got Latrell Sewell on the interchange bench. Josiah Karapani, who's a centre and got a fair bit of time last year. Deloise Hoita, who's back after an injury. And young Jock Madden, who I think will play plenty of minutes in the halves for the Broncos at Redcliffe this weekend. And a pretty strong reserves bench. Josh Rogers will come on and play half a match, I'm sure. Dean Mariner will replace Cobbo. Billy Waters will replace Pakes. Jensen will replace Huss. And then when you got Tyson Smoothie, he's a really good 14. Brendan Piakora. Benjamin Takora, who's fucking huge. Marty Tapau, Jaden Hunt, and Xavier Willison. That is an absolutely stacked side we're coming up against. And they're going to, I'll tell you why they'll be really hard to beat. Because they can bring on Brendan Piakora, Brendan Takora, Marty Tapau, and Xavier Willison, and Corey Jensen, who essentially all those players were starting players for them last year for long periods, especially when they didn't have Carrigan, Ricky, or Haas in Origin and injury and whatever else. The fact these fellas can go full ball, the interchange bench there is all back, so that's not how it's going to roll out. They've just named them 1 to 27. You'd expect Xavier Willison's going to play some minutes. He'll be going full ball. Takura will be going full ball when he comes on. Piakura will be going full ball. We haven't got the forward depth in this game. For us to win this match would be an absolute miracle, I believe, over 80 minutes. What I'd be wanting to see is that our team's in front or competing really, really hard while these players are on the field. This 17 plays that match, but they're going to be tested to the max when it comes to their energy levels. When the whole Broncos squad is there, essentially their top 30, the people they would select first from their top 30 are going to be there in order to play in this match and all get a big hit out. You know, that's, you talk about trials and there's $100,000 up for a preseason challenge. If we brought 27 players to this contest and we brought Saluka Fafita and we brought Amone and Mau, then I think we'll be a much bigger chance of winning the match because we can bring those players on to play really long minutes, or to play 20, 25 minutes and go full ball. So I think you'll see a Broncos side which is running at 90 to 95% for a long period of this match, whereas we're going to be, these guys are going to be put through the ringer before they have that 2-week break. I think it's going to do a lot more for our team in preparation, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get beaten by a fair bit. And that would not indicate to me that we've had a bad day. or that we're a bad side. And I'm getting ahead of myself here. But just looking at things, if I was a betting man, there's no way I'd be backing the Bulldogs to win this match with the amount of depth that the Broncos are bringing to the contest to be able to play in what is considered an unlimited interchange match. And the fact they can give a lot of these players a lot of minutes to play at a high level and high intensity in what will be a very important trial for both sides. So, yeah, important trial as in the way that for the team's processes and preparing for round one. The result, I think, comes a long second in this match. But every player out there will be trying to represent our fans and represent the Bulldogs well, and we'll want to make sure they look the goods. But, if a Broncos win in the Queensland media is going to be talked about like Madge Maguire, the second coming, they are going to have players playing hard for Madge Maguire. And, yeah, the Bulldogs are going to be tested for 80 minutes against a fresh, tough, high-depth side in the Broncos. So, luckily, it's not for 2 points. If it was 2 points, it wouldn't worry me as much, you know what I mean? Because they'd pick their forward pack. Their bench would be like Piakura, Smoothie, Jensen, and maybe Willison or something like that. We'd be able to go stride for stride with them. You know what I mean? And if we're not good enough, we're not good enough. But the fact they can pretty much replace that side with a first grade quality side almost against our team with less changes to have, it's going to be tough for the Bulldogs to win. But hopefully we get to see in that first half our boys go out, compete hard, go through their processes, make their tackles, put on a couple of tries, and really put the Broncos under pressure. And then, not make mistakes so that they can stay in the grind and, do what they got to do. But, yeah, if I'm a betting man, I'm not backing the Bulldogs. Simple as that, based on the sides that are being named and the fact they've got so much depth. With Luke Smith playing centre on the weekend, will he be playing centre in Cup? He may, man. Like I said, that there's no way he'd be playing centre in Cup, but he may. That they might have decided that's what they're going to do with him. Mark said that might be the Serrato surprise for 2025. Gillespie played at Manly. Yeah, that's right, buddy. Not sure about Hayes. He come off of an injury in the trial against the Tigers. He said this is our first grade squad. I pray to God no one gets injured. It is our first grade squad. What are you talking about? What I was saying is that we don't have the backup. We don't have the backup that they've got. They've pretty much got their best 30 that are going to interchange and play at a high level over 80 minutes. So our boys are going to have to really be tested against a high energy opponent. So when they bring those other guys on, who are all first grade quality, I don't believe what we've got, we just don't have the amount of players on the bench. But it's horses for courses. It's a trial for processes. The result's secondary to what they're trying to prepare for. It's like the young brigade. It's great to celebrate the wins and winning comps and all that sort of thing, but that's not what it's about. It's about winning NRL. Everything's about winning NRL and the club winning that competition. That's what it's all aimed at. Pick up those other things on the way, so good. If we win this trial, I'll tell you what, if we win this trial, the Broncos would want to feel pretty fucking embarrassed because the amount of depth they've got and the amount of first grade experience the number of first grade games they've got in their squad compared to the Bulldogs squad, considering they've got 28 players and we've got 24. On top of that as well, yeah, it's going to be tough to win. Mike, praise to God, no one gets injured. Me too, my friend. Me too. But I'll be there with Mark and we'll argue about certain things. We can't sit next to each other though because of the fucking thing sold out. Everyone wanted to go and watch the Dolphins and the Titans and the Broncos play the Bulldogs, and obviously a lot of Bulldogs fans will be there as well from Queensland, and literally got the last 2 tickets for Mark and I. Ben Hunt will want to go back to the Steelers. Let's hope so. Yeah. We're up against it, but we're up against it when we played them in round 19 or whatever it was too. No critter. Broncos had their best squad that they'd assembled all year on the paddock, and we beat it. We smashed them. But I think this is a different kettle of fish. I think the youngsters have played really well in the trial matches that they've played. They have a trial against a Queensland Cup team, and then they had a trial against the Titans. And yeah, their A graders are going to start versus our A graders. If Satili Tupanua was playing, I think Jamin Salmon would be down here at number 18 or 19. That's what I believe. If Jacob Carraz was available, Blake Wilson would be down here in one of these positions from 19 and 20 and so on. And that's just the way it is. That is the way it is. So we take out Salmon for Satili Tupanua. I think that'll remain our squad. In a few weeks' time, though, we might see a Daniel Saluka Fafita come in for a Hughes, or if there'll be an injury somewhere. You know, if Preston or Kikau get injured or don't show form, Satili can move to an edge, and then you've got these other fellas to come through. But yeah, this side will be our first grade squad to start. I think that's gonna, if they don't get injured, that's the team that'll start round 1 against the Dragons. If we do get some injuries, we've got some pretty good replacements to come in, and they're all there. But guys, that's my thoughts on the match. Mike says, sure, you'll go to Allianz game, Mick. Well, look, if I can get the funds available, I'm looking to go into the King's birthday. That'd be the game I'd want to go to, and I'll be hitting up. I'll be hitting up the club to give me a ticket too, just quietly. Not that they have to or are obliged to, but someone said they would for me one day if I ever asked. I've never asked for anything. If Patrick Carrigan wears a man bun, someone's got to pull it off his head. There's an aura around the Dogs this year. The Broncos will have the jitters. Oh, we'll see. The Broncos, I felt, had that aura back in 2023, and it dissipated quite quickly last year. I believe that the Broncos are a team that would have progressed this season no matter who their coach was. I think last year they obviously had that devastation, but they also had a lot of fucking injuries. And, bringing in the experience of Ben Hunt's going to add a lot of depth to their halves. And they're in a premiership window still. And they're on an upward trajectory. And I think we're on an upward trajectory as well. And that doesn't always mean you have an improvement on the previous year. But if that trajectory keeps climbing over, the next 5 years, where we can either keep climbing, have a little dip, then climb even higher. I don't know if it's this year, next year, or whatever, but these things never go the way people expect. I'm nervous as I ever was, but I do believe the Bulldogs have every right to be more confident. They've got a lot. You do their cohesion stats. They've clocked up some games together. There's a number of players in that side which are familiar with each other now, but nothing to the level of the Broncos or the Panthers or the Storm. Like these teams have got kids that were playing together for years ago, and until we see the likes of Mitch Woods and Rennie Karma and these kids all in the same field at the same time in first grade, we're not going to be at that level either. So the more we can inject these kids into our first grade side and get them becoming the core, the better we're going to be for the long run. But right now, I think there's enough belief in our squad and in our club and in our fan base and in our team to get some really good results and make us proud. So let's hope that continues. Yeah, fuck Mad Jadam. Hopefully we'll get 50K at the King's birthday this year. Last year was amazing. Atmosphere is something I'll never forget. Yeah, it was good coming through the TV as well. And when Blake Wilson scored that final try, far out. What a day that was. What a day. Anyway, guys, I'm yawning. Nearly gone for 2 hours. I'm going to say goodbye now. It's been a big day. Another big day tomorrow. It's always a big day in my place. Despite hating the Broncos, I do see them getting the top 4. Yeah, I feel the same, mate. I fucking hate them, but I do think they will make the top 4. And not because of Madge Maguire, but because they've got a squad that's been assembled. But prior to him getting there, there was always going to improve. Now, if it has the same injuries that they had last year, they're going to struggle. They get some reps happening on that football field. And I'll tell you something now. Reynolds and Van Hunt will defend better than Ezra Mann. Ezra can put on a hit and he's gutsy, but he also missed a lot of tackles in the line, which led to tries. So, fuck him. Good night, Mick. Go the Dogs. See you next time. Much love and respect from Adam. No chance. Oh, Mark. You love to argue. You think you know, but you don't know. But we'll see. We'll see. I hope you're right about some things, to be honest. I really do, but unfortunately, you're not. But I hope you are 100% right about the Broncos. And I hope we go to this trial match and the Bulldogs really do put the jitters through them. I couldn't hope for anything more, but I think we're going to come away from that feeling a little bit like, oh, we got beaten. And that's not being a bad supporter. It's just because we've got, as I said, they're going to be coming for us for 80 minutes because they've got the depth and a lot of players are going to play on that day. They're going to play all those players, 28 players versus 24, and they've got like 12 or 13 forwards where we don't. So we're going to struggle. Mark's adopted son. I'm embarrassed. Just kidding. Love you, Mark. Mick, you're a legend. Thanks, Adam. You're a legend too, my friend. You're all legends. I'll see you soon, Mark. Can't wait to watch the footy with you. Have a beer. It's going to be good. And everyone else, I'll never forget it, mate. Thank you. And Mark loves you too, Mike. Have a good night, everyone. I need to get some shut-eye and get back to work in the morning. As Jeff Fennick said, I love yous all. I don't know if he said go the Bulldogs, but go the Bulldogs.